Hello, hello. Hi, Kimberly. Thank you for your compliment about the picture. I don't feel like I look like that tonight. Hi, Mike. Hey, my chat's working. Thank you for the heads up, though, Mike. I mean, I was like, okay, if the chat doesn't work, what am I going to do? Am I going to still do a live? So I'm glad that the chat is working. I'm going to make this smaller so I can see the chat easier. And it's messing around on me. So thank goodness. Yeah, I hopped on Kathleen's live and the chat wasn't working. And then you emailed me, and so it was like, oh wow, what kind of live can you do without a chat? Then it turns into just like a video. So hi Rosani and Cheryl. How's everyone doing this evening? So, Stevie Sue. Yes, Debbie Sue. And then I was on another live and it didn't the same thing. The chat was going, but mine didn't come through either. So I see you, Debbie Sue, and there's Miss Pam. So everyone doing okay this evening? Nobody's stressed out since we're going to talk about anxiety. Thank you, Pam. Thanks. Um, I've been working on my thumbnails. They must have fixed the glitch. Yeah. And that's probably their uh, problem email thing probably got blowed up. So, can you imagine? Just, it's like, wow, what a trip. But technology, you're gonna have problems if it's technology. It's just a given. So everyone's saying hello to everyone. There's Mrs. G. Ciao, Miss G in the house. You can hardly hear me. Is that better? Turn my mic up. If that doesn't work, I can plug in I have to get it, but I have a lapel mic. That will help. Did that help, Kimberly? Sounds good? Well, I turned up my sound. So hopefully, turn up my sound, and then that makes the audio. Child, I'm here, Mrs. G says. So saying hello to everyone. Cheryl says, sounds good. Okay, that's great. That's great. You hear me fine? You hear me fine. Has everyone had a pretty good week? Seems like I've been busy this week. I don't know. I need to retire from my retirement. I'm really kind of one of those unretired people, is what the problem is. I retired from my corporate job. So, hi, Yvonne. How are you? Oh, that's so did y'all get more snow? I know up in Maine and around where Lori lives and wherever she lives, they got 24 inches of snow. And I know my friend in Canada, they got another layer of snow. So Yvonne's tired. Just cold. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's been rather nice here. It's been cold, kind of coolish in the morning, like 30s, but it's gotten up to 70. And so it's been really nice and I've enjoyed it. We've had some bad wind, though, really bad wind. So I was going to talk about anxiety. Kind of what spurred this was I'd already worked on a few notes. I had my little post-it notes. I wished I'd have had stock and post-it or invented post-it notes. Is what I wished, But I had a little post-it note, and then I was on Lori's live, and we're talking about breath work and stuff. And so, since I work with my clients, I teach them a lot of different techniques to breathing. But I have found that the box breathing has been probably one of the top most used breathing technique because it takes less thinking to accomplish that. Some of the others, hey, it's Jerry, Belt Loop 29's here. So, and Ninja's here. Hey, Doc, how's it going? So I decided to make a list of all the many different breathing techniques to help with anxiety. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think uh, drives anxiety. Um, I think one of the biggest factors when people deal with anxiety is they are trying to control things they cannot control. And um, I know that there's this, hi, Lori, there's the mind body connection, and one or the other can trigger like anxiety or a panic attack. I don't know if anyone in here's ever had a panic attack, a true, full blown panic attack. Hi, retired Red. Are you new here? In Catherine's fabulous 60s? Welcome, welcome. So, I have. It's been many, many years ago. I've had 2 full-blown panic attacks, and they're scary. Yvonne said she's had. They are very scary. Feels like a heart attack. You can't breathe. Your throat closes up. I described it as I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest and I'd swallowed a piece of carpet. So I just happened to have, because I was dealing with high anxiety at the time, and I had happened to have medication. And so the people that were around me, I told them, I'm going to take this. And if 15 minutes I'm not better, you'll call the ambulance. Retired Red said you have a panic disorder. It's so hard to deal with anxiety, and there are coping skills that we teach in therapy to help people with anxiety. And so much of the time, it's like I said, a mind body connection. Something can happen and you'll feel it in your body first, and then your thinking gets involved. Or sometimes you will think something and then it settles in your body. So there is this definite connection. And it's because that you start thinking, and your mind automatically, your amygdala starts secreting cortisol, and then it gets caught up. And then if you get to the adrenaline stage, that's when you feel the panic. So it's, hi, Kristen. But anxiety is really hard to deal with. And I think the best thing to help, I call it stop the train, is to incorporate using your voice, breathing exercises, and some sort of thought interrupter, because that treats all 3. It relaxes the vagus nerve by using your voice. You can put pressure right here. And there's just so many things. So what I've learned through my own experience of dealing with anxiety and um, in in theory and that sort of thing, and through experience of working with other people of what works really well. And you never know what's going to work for one may not work for the other. And so you have to give them several coping skills, and it takes working with someone several times to maybe um, lower the anxiety, to where it's manageable. Um, a lot of anxiety is caused from your thinking. And then in the body, what's really phenomenal is the body doesn't know the difference between anxiety and excitement. They feel exactly the same, you know. And a lot of people are seekers because they like that adrenaline rush and that feeling, and that is the excitement. But the body reacts the same way to fear. And a lot of anxiety is fear. You fixate on the future. There's something you're afraid of. You try to control things you can't control, and it begins to get this. It's a loop. It becomes a loop. Um, I know that for me, some of the things that have worked is, before I read this, I'm going to do some. They're saying hi to each other. Kristen, I said hi to Kristen. Uh, Cheryl said, I had an attack at the courthouse after moving to Florida. Immediately called a friend and she prayed for me. And that is one of the things you can pray. Belt Loop said, maybe that's why I don't typically have a problem. My thoughts tend to jump from one thing to another. It's fixating, the clinically, that's, fixating on the future. So, um, Catherine said to Cheryl, thank God for good friends. Isn't that the truth? Kimberly said, who is that spouse wife? That's her channel. Rhonda, my therapist and I did EMDR today for the first time, and it worked for me. It's not scary anymore. That is fabulous. I would love to go and get some EMDR training, but I would want to do the training in person, and there's not anywhere around here that does that. So Belt Loop said, maybe it's that then. I do not try to think so much. Um, Simply just Krista. Hi, Rhonda. Sitting and listening as I eat my cereal before bed. Hi, Krista. Are you having a carrot with that cereal? Okay, Catherine. EMDR is a type of therapy used for trauma, mainly trauma, where they use relaxation, um, kind of guided, and you move. It's eye movement back and forth. There's um, a lot of research has come out lately about treating mental disorders with movement of some kind, side to side movement, eye movement, dancing. Somatic yoga is kind of a similar thing. Also, tapping, because it's movement and you have to think about doing it. Tapping can help with anxiety. It's eye movement, something, something. Yes, it is. Chris said no carrots. I still laugh about that. She did a video, and she used the analogy of chasing a carrot on the end of a stick. I loved it. Honeycomb cereal. Yay. So I think that uh, people that are faith based can use prayer or scripture or that sort of thing. And I know that Scripture has definitely helped me a lot with my anxiety. Catherine said, "Oh, okay, thanks. I think my therapist told me, not sure if she does it. Tapping helps. I forgot about it though." See, and Catherine, that's part of the problem. When your anxiety gets high, your amygdala kicks in and you can't it shuts down any frontal lobe thinking, that reasoning, problem solving. And so to think about the coping skills, sometimes you just, they're not there. And so the thing to do with learning coping skills is to learn the coping skill when you're not in a heightened state. Coping skills: meditation, visualization. Visualization is when you draw in kind of in a meditative state, and you visualize a safe place, somewhere safe or calm, like you're at a lake and you're in a boat, laying on in the boat, and the sun's shining on you and it's warm, and it, and you have to practice to learn how to do this. And it takes work. It takes work to learn how to meditate. It takes work to learn how to do visualization. I like, let's see, then there's grounding. And I'm not talking about earthing. I'm talking about you get grounded. There's several ways to do grounding. I like grounding a lot because you come outside of yourself, and I like to teach my clients to describe their surroundings out loud. Like, there's a lamp over there, and it's bronze, and it has a lampshade on it, and or a picture, and you describe it. Um, so it's very, it kind of shuts down, um, that getting amped up, because you have to thought interrupters, you have it in, and it involves the senses. Tapping, someone asked, there's tapping therapy. I was reading about it once. Yes. And you can look it up on YouTube. A lot of people show tapping. Hi, Dana. Are you new here? That's right. I was had a client one time I was working with, and I was teaching her to, that she could hum. And if you do it low enough, it really vibrates your vocal cords, and that vibration relaxes the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a large nerve that runs up and down your body. And when you get in that heightened state, it tightens up in the amygdala, and it starts secreting cortisol, and immediately you are in your parasympathetic nervous system, and so everything goes awry. You don't have, frontal lobe thinking, and you just in your body feeds off of your thinking, for the body, and it's frightening. That's what Rosani said. Um, it's frightening. He said, I saw it happening to both my stepdaughters when their dad died. I had no idea that's what it was at the time. It happened to them at different times, and they helped each other. That's great. Um, Yeah, Catherine, you said, I've heard walking barefoot in grass a form of grounding. Too cold right now, LOL. And that they do call that grounding. But when I first got into learning about therapeutic practices, what I talked about was called grounding, and what you're talking about was called earthing. They've kind of gotten another name for the grounding, but that's it. You get grounded in the present moment of where you're at, is why it's called that. Um, Krista said, I haven't found much of anything that helps during panic attacks with driving PTSD with me as the passenger, aside from pull over and let me out. LOL. Yeah. So Christian said it's easy, but it doesn't take a whole lot of thought while I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack. But that's, I think that the grounding um, is easier to do because, if you think of it, and that's the problem, you don't always think of it. You can also, in grounding, you can name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. And that's another, but that takes a lot of thought. And you can splash cold water on your face, and it will get you back in the present moment. So, um, okay, Dana, you found me through Sally D. That's great. Catherine's uh, Oh, don't be sorry. It's like I said, it is the proper term. It's called people call it grounding now. But back in the day, because I've been in social services for about 25 years, about 20, I don't know. I got my first license about 21 years ago, and as a social worker, and they called it grounding then. But today that means you go outside and you touch the earth, you hug a tree, you get grounded with the ground, the actual earth. And I tried to find, I think they've kind of renamed it, but it's but people, I still call it grounding, and then I have to explain. Uh, so Yvonne said, I was driving while having a panic attack. It was so scary. I had a hard time moving my legs. That is scary. It is scary. And, then that heightens it even more. Usually a attack lasts about 15 minutes, and so if you can say, I'm going to get through this. Another thing that I like to do with my clients is I have them think about the sensory stuff, and that if they can write me using their favorite things, like what's your favorite color, what like um, your favorite blanket or place, or and it's like, I had one, she was pretty young, she said, I have this favorite sweatshirt and it's purple, and I like to take it out of, I put it in the dryer, and so it smells like the dryer sheet, and I can put that on, and it's warm, and it's my favorite, and I can see the purple color, and I can smell the dryer sheet, and I can touch it, and I like to put that on and get up in my bed, and I feel safe, and it helps me with my anxiety. And so I tell my clients to envision that and to practice that when they're not in a heightened state of their favorite things using their senses. And so that whenever they feel it start in, they can go there in their mind. They can think about pulling that sweatshirt out of the dryer and it being warm and putting it on, and crawling up in the middle of their bed, and hugging themselves and saying, I'm safe. I am safe. Because a lot of times there's a threatened type of feeling to having anxiety and the panics attack. So anyway, that's true, Catherine, and that's what I said at the very first of this. A lot of anxiety is caused by trying to control things we can't control. And that brings me to, I'm going to read this. Um, MS Sensibly, welcome. I haven't seen you here before. It says, I'm barefoot most of the time. I love going outside and wiggling my toes in the grass. It can be invigorating, even in the cold, for a very brief time. I'm 72. That's great. I am too. I like to go outside in my backyard. I stand out, I walk out in the mornings to where I'm in the sun. I can feel the sun and look up and I love to do that. So, hi Sandra. I was in your live and it wouldn't accept I don't think it would accept my chat. Everybody else was chatting, but it didn't like me. So I'm going to kind of go through this. This is something that really helps me. And it's the cure for care. It is in Matthew 6:25. It says, therefore I say unto you, be not anxious for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than the food, and the body than raiment? Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? And what I say to that is, have you ever seen an anorexic bird? I haven't. They're all little fat, chubby robins out in my backyard, and the blue jay, and and it's, the birds are so cool. And there's been research done that hearing birds singing will elevate your mood. I forgot about how much percentage, but that just hearing birds sing. And so it's good to get outside. Debbie Sue said she couldn't chat in Sanders either. That the chat didn't like us, Debbie Sue. So Kimberly said, I sat out on my back porch this afternoon and felt the sun on my face. Felt so comfy. The warmth of the sun, just Catherine said, another thing that helps me is to avoid the news or people who are always complaining. It's hard. That's true. I don't watch the news. So this is the one I like. It's verse 27. Which of you by being anxious could add one more cubit unto his stature? So if I worry about it, am I going to get taller? I'm pretty short. I'm 5 foot tall. That one I'm thinking, well, that's kind of ludicrous to think I can add, and, I'd like to have about 4 more inches. I think 5'4" is perfect height. Let me worry about it. So, Krista said birds are very healing. Dana said, I utilize deep breathing and have 2 cats I use for grounding, whether it's petting them, playing with them, or cuddles, and turning to God has also helped me with my anxiety. It's true. It's true. Miss Sensibility said, no TV in the morning, quiet and coffee. It's true. If you want to know what's going on in the world, watch it in the middle of the day and don't watch a whole lot of it. And you can protect yourself from those people that get you spun up, and pets, you're right. And that is a form of grounding. It's tactile, the petting of my dog's right here. He's not snoring as loud as he was last week. Good night, Krista. I hope you have a good rest. So anyway, it talks about therefore be not anxious, saying, what shall we eat or drink or eat or clothe? For all these things the Gentiles seek, for your heavenly Father knows that you have need of all these things. So I wrote down at the bottom, if it isn't going to matter 100 years from now, don't worry about it. I must have heard several things like in a sermon or something about this. On the side here, I put trust God and pray, then watch the worries fade away. When we worry, we believe more in our problems than in God's promises. And, I have told myself that when I worry, I am praying for bad stuff to happen, because usually it's always bad stuff. And so I'm going to go through these breathing. Y'all are going to have fun with this. Where's Mrs. G? She's going to like some of these. So there are 8, 9 breathing techniques to help. Um, and I would think if I worked myself up into a tizzy and was fixing to have a panic attack, some of these, there's no way I would remember to do some of these. But one of them is alternate nostril breathing. And you do this and you pinch it off and hold it and you let it out the other nostril. And then you continue that and you alternate, and I'm thinking that's too for me. That's too much thinking. Then there's the lion's breath, and you and I think of now this one might be fun. I could think about the Wizard of Oz and the lion in the Wizard of Oz, but it has movement, and you like this, like a lion would be, and you inhale, and then you like a lion. And so I don't really know. Like I said, again, it's almost too much thinking and too much work. And then there's box breathing. Now, this is absolutely my favorite. Works really good for me. And these are things to practice when you're not in a heightened state. Box breathing is easy because it's easy to remember the counts. It's in for 4 through the nose, hold it for 4, exhale through the mouth for 4, hold it for 4, and repeat. And that's kind of easy to remember. And you have to count thought interrupter breathing exercises. Breathing meditation and the combination of some of these breathing techniques and meditation at the same time, very, very useful. And it's something that you have to practice and almost do every day to keep, anxiety. It's almost like you treat it before you have it. And so, Sandra said she's heard of that one, the box breathing. It's probably the most, that one, this one is very popular. You inhale for 4, you hold it for 7, you exhale for 8, and when you exhale, you make a Thank you for coming, Dana. And then there's pursed lips breathing, and it's exactly what you would think it is. It's and then diaphragm breathing. If you could train yourself to breathe with your diaphragm instead of your lungs and do that during meditation, that's like you might be elevated to monk status if you could do this. But lung breathing is when you and you feel that. Diaphragm breathing is when you breathe in and and singers use this to increase voice capacity. And one of the things that they teach a lot of times with people that are having a panic attack is you put a hand here and you take a stuffed animal, put it on your tummy, and you try to breathe and raise the stuff, make the stuffed animal move. Takes some concentration, and it also is diaphragm breathing. So then there's the long exhale breathing. This is where you inhale, you pause at the top, and you take another quick, short breath in. You go. And you exhale twice the amount of time as when you inhaled. The lady I work with, that she said when she gets overwhelmed and feels anxious, she uses what's called freeze breathing. And she does. And it's where you suck air in through your teeth and it feels cold. And it's kind of funny. And then there's the bumblebee breath, and you put your thumbs over your ears and your index fingers over your eyes, and this and this. And you inhale slowly through your nose, and when you exhale, you make a humming or buzzing noise. And that's the same type of thing. I think that if you can learn to do the breathing and humming together, would probably be a good combo. Diaphragm breathing with humming. So it does take a lot of practice, but the breathing does work. A meditation where you do diaphragm breathing it's proven to lower your level of anxiety. And like I said, I think that I know, and the reason that I kind of wanted to go over some of this is when the snowstorm was coming, I got all worked up. My anxiety was kicked off, and it's almost like, because it was such a habit with me. It's almost like, the sober alcoholic that drinks and then they're off drinking. And that's kind of what happened with my anxiety. I dipped into it, and I just read what Cheryl said. She said, all this breathing is making me burp. Have you been trying them? Oh, thank you, Catherine. But I have it. It was like I like to, and I always talk about fear. Um, to me, fear is kind of like when you've been on a really uh, good eating plan. No sugar, whole foods, and there's that ice cream in the freezer, and you take a spoon, and you think, I'm just gonna go get one bite. One bite won't hurt me. And I don't know about you, but I have never eaten one spoonful of ice cream. If I ever, one spoonful, I've eaten half of the thing. So, ice cream is probably one of my biggest weaknesses. And fear is like that, or anxiety is like that, or something. I dip into it, and the next thing I know, it's full blown. And it has taken a lot. It has taken some work for me to break that that the anxiousness that caused, and that's been a month ago, or I don't know. MS sensibility, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right. The deep breathing really helps. When I go to bed at night, a couple of deep breathing exercises will settle me in for a restful sleep. Yeah, yeah. And so, did you try all of them, Cheryl? Did you do the lion? I think that was funny. Now, the freeze breathing, I could probably do that. That's real easy. And I'll probably do that anyway. But one of the things that helps with my thoughts, to interrupt my thoughts, is counting backwards. And it's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I do it in a mantra, kind of meditatively. And, you know, um, I can breathe and I can do that sort of thing. But like I said, I had a client that I taught humming to, and how to the low humming, and we did some other work and some breath work and stuff. And the next week she came back to me and she said, well, the humming was okay, but it worked really well for my son. She said he got all worked up, and told him to start humming, and she said, "Now I hear him humming in there, to go to sleep." So it does. Now Cheryl's yawning. Yes, yeah, all that breathing, taking in all that extra oxygen, and so now you're yawning. But I think that when we feel it in our body, it sets off the thinking, because we relate that, something's wrong. I know that um, my trigger that sets me off is anytime I feel threatened, even if it's perceived threat. And I have learned to uh, redirect that. I say, am I really threatened? You know, what do I feel is threatening me? Is it true that I am threatened? And if I'm not, I'm in a safe place. There's not really anything going on. Then I can calm myself down, and that's kind of that reparenting that. Um, but it's all about the practice. The only difference that someone that manages their anxiety better is they've had more practice in doing the coping skills. Because some people need medication for their anxiety, but I best treatment for anything, any mental disorder, anything you deal with, if you take medication to couple it with behavior modification. And that's what this is. This is, really pretty strong cognitive behavior therapy. And I know that getting in that state, it's your body can feel like it's ran a marathon, and it hasn't. Behavior modification, yes, ma'am. I believe in that. You know, if a lot of times if you can do the action, then the fear or the threat or the feeling unsafe or whatever it is that has set off your nervous system, you can calm it down. And you know like who was it said they called a friend, Cheryl called a friend, and they talked her down. And um there's so many things: prayer, meditation, um memorizing scripture, just and I know that even though that stuff in your body, if you're in a panic attack, feels way, way strong, your conscious mind is stronger. And so there's things that can be in your subconscious that you don't realize, your beliefs about things that drive anxiety, but your conscious mind. And that's why if you practice how to breathe, practice meditation. What kind of meditation do you do, Daryl? I've done guided meditation. I've done breathing meditation. Um, I've done the light show meditation. That's not one of my favorites. I really like more of a guided meditation. And but the visualization of a safe place is what uh, really worked for me. Um, because I could, and I did. I practiced Buddhist and Hindu guided meditation. Yes, yeah, and don't they involve breathing? Usually, Buddhist meditation involves diaphragmatic breathing, and that is probably the top 1-2 combo to help with anxiety, and it's I won't say it's real hard to master, but it takes practice. And that's the thing about that I had to practice to learn how to do the visualization. But yet, it once I learned it, I mean, all I had to do was, I got worked up and I was to where I could shut my eyes, I could go there immediately. And I think that today, after 30 years of practicing some of that, that I could almost I can see it in my mind's eye with my eyes open. And it and that's true. What is it? Great meditations. I mean, you can do a 5 minute, they have 5 minute guided meditations. And that's sometimes where you have to start. You know, you're thinking, mine was so I had such a problem with racing thoughts, intrusive thoughts, overthinking, that it took a little bit to break my thinking. And so 5 minutes was all I could do, and practice that. And then it was, you know, 10 minutes and all of that. So I just kind of wanted to go over this because I was just making some notes and I thought, oh, that would be good for my live. And then the breathing, because I think in Lori's live, um, Sunday night, she was talking about breathing too, in the mind body connection. You feel it in your body, it manifests, you start thinking about it, but it also goes the other way. I can, um, you know, pick something up, and counting breaths is good. This is true. YouTube has tons of gratitude meditations, and those are good too. I think gratitude is a my you know my mentor taught me to, when I get anxious or whatever, she would tell me to go wash the dishes. And while I'm washing the dishes, be grateful for the dishes to wash, because it meant I had food to eat. And be grateful for the food and the money I had to go buy the food, and the ability physically to go to the grocery store and buy. I mean, she just took it, and just before I know it, I just could be grateful for everything. So, it's really a practice. That's another, it's practice that I have is, in the mornings, in that first cup of coffee, and it smells so wonderful. And then that first sip is to be grateful for that. Um, and when I can remember, boy, when I first started recovery, and someone told me you need to practice gratitude, and I said, "What do I have to be grateful for?" And she told me. So, you know, uh, Cheryl said sometimes anxiety catches you off guard and can be triggered by past trauma. I think you've covered this before. I have talked about it. The That's usually the body, um the trigger that happens, and and then it sets off the amygdala. Then you get the fight or flight response, and your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, and it's and that's I did a bunch and journaling helps too with anxiety. Um so Catherine said, thank you, Rhonda. And Sandra said, thank you, Rhonda, for this time. We need to have these types of conversations. Yeah, it's important to, because I tell you, right now, so many people, since 2020, anxiety has increased a lot, as percentage wise of the amount of people that say they feel anxious every day. And I think that's, this last year, it's even more so. And all I can do is pray and get out of the way. That's and to take care of myself, and you know that's kind of what I've learned, is that I can take care of myself. And I have, you know have my little scriptures over here. And of course, the top one is Philippians 4:6-8. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which pass all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. So, and there's a really book of that I have read that it says, when we get fearful, that we pray and ask God to remove our fear and ask Him what He would have us be. And, I can be kind, I can be grateful, I can be, all of those things. And so I'm a human being, not a human doing. But I do believe that to take some action to help with anxiety. So that's kind of what I had prepared for tonight. It a little bit of a different uh, live, but it's informational, which I just really felt led to do this topic about anxiety. And so, thank you, Catherine. Do you have a channel? Thanks, Daryl. On that email you sent me, you're going to have to send me a link to that so that I can hear that person speak. I'm speaking Friday night at a small meeting here. You're welcome, Cheryl. Well, all right. We have. It's in your name, this Catherine Fabulous 60s. You did a video on anxiety. You're welcome, Kimberly. Let me write down. I need to write down your channel. Hi, Carol. I done talked all about anxiety. And I was about done. You're late for the party. I'm going to look up your channel, Catherine. So, yes and beyond, LOL. So, good night, all. Gonna practice breathing. All right. Get in front of the mirror and try that lion one. It's kind of fun. The bumblebee one. I don't know. I might could put my, thumbs over my eyes and hum. We're all going to practice breathing. So Debbie Sue says hi to Carol. Carol says, hee hee, I was at granddaughter's enrollment ceremony for the Navy. That don't make sense. You don't have a granddaughter that old. You found Catherine's channel, Daryl? Yeah, it was about anxiety. Oh, Angelo's. All right. You didn't. Okay. I get it. I get it. Carol writes is my accountability partner. So if y'all see me acting up, you can hit her up and tell her to swift kick me. Swift kick in the pants. Oh. All right. Kimberly's put a post there. Sandra said, this live is going to be an excellent replay for me. Thank you. Thank you for watching it. So that's her video. Okay. All right. Well, I think I've been on here almost an hour, not quite, but I don't really have anything else to add. I really appreciate all y'all coming on, and we'll do it again next week. So I want y'all to have a good week. Thanks, Carol. I'll talk to you in the morning. All right. Y'all have a good evening.